Dad, the emotions just pouring out. It might be his fourth, but it means so much. All the sacrifice, all the work.
Respect the OG.
Alrighty, guys, welcome back to Keith's Hot Takes. And on today's show, I'm gonna break down why the Warriors won their fourth championship in 8 years, and I'm gonna talk about why the Celtics ultimately lost 3 games in a row after having a 2-1 lead. And then to close out the show, I'm gonna talk about are the Warriors a lock to win next year's championship? As Draymond said, welcome to the Warriors Invitational again. So we're gonna get into all that on today's show. So why not start with why the Warriors won? To me, their balance was a big part of why they won 4 games in this series. And like I said, to open up the show, their fourth championship in 8 years, that's really impressive. So if we look at it, in game two, they had 5 guys in double figures. In game four, they had 4 players in double figures. In game five, they had 5. And in game six, they had 5 players in double figures. So just really impressive how balanced they are. Uh, you know, usually it's not one guy that's going to beat you. They're going to have at least 2 to 3 starters that contribute, maybe more. And then Pools is going to come off the bench. I know him and Peyton. They had big games in Game 5. Poole had 16 and Peyton had 15. So that was huge. And their defense was also very huge in their 4 wins. They held the Celtics to under 100 points in all 4 of their wins. In game two, they held them to 88 points. In game four, it was 97. Game five, it was 94. And then the closeout game, game six, it was 90 points. And that rounds out to an average of 92 points per game in their 4 wins. And in both of their losses, they let the Celtics get over 100 points. So that was huge. Excellent bench play. In their 4 wins, their bench outplayed the Celtics bench. And as the series went on, the Celtics bench players started to disappear, and it's like they forgot how to play basketball. It was very scary and alarming how they just forgot how to play basketball. So in game two, the Warriors outscored the Celtics bench by 10, 32-22. Game four, it was really close. The Warriors outscored their bench 25-20. In game five, it was really, really bad. 31-4. The Warriors outscored the Celtics bench 31-4. That is alarming. And then in game six, it was much of the same. 21-5. The Warriors outscored the Celtics bench 21-5. Good Lord. Game five, as I'm looking here, the 3 guys that the Celtics bring off their bench, Peyton Pritchard, Derek White, and Grant Williams, they combined to have 4 points. Peyton Pritchard didn't score any points. Derek White forgot how to play basketball. He had 1 point in that game, and Grant Williams only had 3. Uh, you're not going to beat the Warriors that way. Because, like I said, their starters are going to do their job, and then they're going to have 1 to 2 guys come off the bench and contribute, give them points, rebounds, do the dirty things. So that was very disappointing for the Celtics to only get 4 points and 3 guys. And to me, if they're not scoring, you can't have them in the game. Because to me, when Derek White's shot is not falling, he's a defensive liability. And Peyton Pritchard, if he's not scoring, then you really don't need him on the floor because he can't guard a stop sign. So that's just was really disappointing for the Celtics. All right, so let's look at the numbers for the Celtics bench. We'll start with Peyton Pritchard. In game one, he was really good. He had 8 points. In game two, he had 4 points. In game three, he had 3 points. Game four, 1 point. And in game five and six, he had 0 points. So, like I said, if Peyton Pritchard isn't scoring, giving you production off the bench, you don't need to play him. And I think that hurt the Celtics playing him, and he wasn't giving you anything on offense. His shot wasn't falling. Pull him out the game. I know you don't want to play your starters heavy minutes And I think that's what was hurting the Celtics is, their bench was stinking it up, playing like stir fry, and they had to play their starters heavy minutes. And by the time the fourth quarter came around, their legs were done. So this is just really bad with Peyton Pritchard. Uh, having a good game one, and then after that, it's like his basketball skills disappeared. I don't know what happened. Derek White, I mean, he started out hot as well. As we look here, he had the game of his life in game one, 21 points. Game two, he had 12 points. Then in game three, his numbers dipped off, but they still won. He had 7 points. In game four, he had 16 points. Game five, 1 point. And then in game six, to close that game, he had 2 points. And I mean, his shots were barely hitting the rim. So it was just embarrassing. He played really bad in game five. And then we look at Grant Williams. He didn't score in game one. He had 6 points in game two. In game three, he had 10 points. In game four, he had 3 points. Game five, he had 3 points. And in game six, he had 3 points. And that averages out to about 4 points for him. So if we look here, Peyton Pritchard averaged 2.6 points per game. Derek White, he had 9.8 points per game. And Grant Williams only had 4 points per game during this series. You're not going to beat the Warriors if your bench is stinking it up like this. We're going to talk about what was wrong with the Celtics in a minute, but I just wanted to point out how the Warriors' excellent bench play really was a downfall for the Celtics. So why don't we go ahead and jump into what was wrong with the Celtics? Matter of fact, uh, it was an impressive first season for Ime Udoka, but in this final series, the mistakes that they got away with against the Nets, Milwaukee, and the Heat, a great team with a lot of championship experience like the Warriors, you can't do the things that they were getting away with in the Eastern Conference. But they had an impressive run through the Eastern Conference. They beat some of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. Like I said, they beat the Nets 4-0 in the first round, and then in the semifinals they beat the Bucks in 7, and then they beat the Heat in 7. So that was really impressive, the run that they had. And if they had beat the Warriors, this is probably going to be one of the toughest roads to a championship that I can remember in my lifetime. But yes, let's start with the turnovers. In their 4 losses, the Celtics averaged 18 turnovers. And as I look here, in game two, they had 18 turnovers. In game four, 15. In game five, 18. And game six, I don't know what they had on their hands where they just couldn't keep up with the basketball, and it just kept fumbling out their hands, and they would get in bad spacing situations and they would end up turning the ball over. But they had 22 turnovers in game six. Your season's on the line and you're turning the ball over, you're being careless. It's like in any sport. In football, if you turn it over against a good offensive team or a good football team, they're gonna make you pay. In baseball, if you commit an error, the team's gonna make you pay. And basketball is no different. The Warriors made them pay, and the Warriors are so deadly on their fast break. You really don't want to turn the ball over. And like I said on my NBA Finals preview show with my guy Ruff from Time Out Sports, we said they have to limit their turnovers. And the Celtics, you're not going to beat the Warriors averaging 18 turnovers in your 4 losses. That's not going to work. We already talked about that bench players cracking under the bright lights. In case you want me to go over those numbers again, Peyton Pritchard averaged 2.6 points per game during the finals. Derek White, 9.8 points per game. And Grant Williams, he averaged 4 points per game. So it looks like the moment was a little too big for their bench players. Derek White, I mean, he started out really well, and then I don't know what happened in these final 2 ball games, but it's like he forgot how to play basketball. So I'm really disappointed in Derek White. I know the Celtics fans are, because they traded a first-round draft pick for him. I mean, he started out good, but I just don't know. And Grant Williams, he had been playing great and then I don't know what happened to him. Uh, and next, I think what hurt the Celtics the most is the lack of having a table setter. So I don't know if you guys have ever done this, but I know pre-pandemic, when me and my family used to eat at my grandma's house, me and my brother would always help my grandma, set up the dinner table, help her out. One of us would, set the table. One of us would do the ice. So the Celtics, they needed somebody to set up their offense. They needed a true point guard. Marcus Smart is not a point guard. He's not a true point guard, and that's what they need badly. I don't care if it's the draft, which I'm going to talk about on next week's podcast. It'll drop next Monday at 12:30. Uh, I don't care if it's trade or free agency, but they need to find a point guard. Now, the problem that they're going to run into is they don't have a first round draft pick this year. Now, obviously, they could trade into the first round. It's going to be some teams that look to, trade their pick to, pile up on picks and, stuff like that. So it's a way they could work their way into the first round because right now all they have is the 53rd pick because they traded for Derek White and they traded their first round pick of this year for that pick. So it was a phenomenal decision. He was playing really well up until the final two games of the finals, where, like I said, he just disappeared. So I don't care how the Celtics get this done, but they need to find a way to get a true point guard on this team because I think that would have made things a lot easier for this team. And I think Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum wouldn't have all the turnovers that they had. Jason Tatum having 100 turnovers throughout the playoffs. That's because he's, being asked to do something he's not natural at, and that's setting up the team and setting up their offense. So uh, I think that's why they had so many turnovers because they don't, like I said, have a natural point guard. And, they don't need a Chris Paul or any, a point guard like that, but they just need somebody that can get Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum in their spots and make life easier for them and not harder for them. So I'll be intrigued to see whether they trade into the first round for a team that's looking to, move back and, stock up on picks, like I said, or if they, try to make a trade to Indiana, Malcolm Brogdon, uh, or, somebody else. So we'll have to see how they get that done, but they definitely need to get that done. And Marcus Smart, he averaged 5 assists and 3 turnovers in the finals, and he had at least 2 turnovers in 5 of their 6 games. So that's not going to work, and I think that's ultimately why they need to look to get a true point guard on this team. And I think lastly, the biggest thing that hurt the Celtics was their superstars not showing up in big time moments, especially in these last 3 games, which they lost. As I look here, Tatum, he went 1 for 5 in game 4, 2 points. In game 5, he went 1 for 6. He had 5 points. And in game 6, he was 1 for 3 with 2 points. You got to close it out against the Warriors, especially in game 4 when you have a chance to go up 3-1. They're turning the ball over, they're missing shots. It's just like you got a chance to go for the kill shot against a team who has all this championship experience. And once you let them tie it up, I knew it was over for the Celtics. And then we flip over to Jaylen Brown. He had 6 points in game 4. He had 5 in game 5, and he had 8 points in game 6. So I really think it was more on Tatum. I know in game 5, if I'm not mistaken, he got fouled on a couple shots, and I think that kind of messed with him. And also, I think them having to play such heavy minutes in these last couple games because their bench was so god awful really hurt them in the fourth quarter. Because they're having to play 40+ minutes. By the time they get to the fourth quarter, they're drained. Their legs are gone. So I think that really hurt them. So I think it's on them that they, weren't able to execute in the fourth quarter and really put their team on their back and get them to the finish line and, win a couple of these games. But I think their bench also needs to get some of the blame. And also, I know people have been really hard on Jason Tatum, saying all type of stuff on social media. He's 24. I feel like he's going to use this as a learning experience. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Celtics get back to the finals one day if they, get a true point guard, fix their bench, make that stronger, and have guys they can count on when they run into a juggernaut like the Warriors. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're back here one day. But Jason Tatum, he's going to be fine. He's a young phenom, and I think he's going to learn from this experience. It's going to make him hungrier, and look out for them next year. Him and Jalen Brown, like I said, they're so young. It's not like they're 30 and they stunk it up like this, So they're young, and they're only going to get better and better with time. And what a great first season for them under Ime Udoka, getting to the finals in his first season. That's really impressive. So I expect them to build on this for sure. And another thing I wanted to mention before I get into are the Warriors a lock to repeat next year? Uh, in game two, I think that was really, really awful. Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum, they go crazy. And then Robert Williams scores 2 points. Al Horford scores 2 points. And Marcus Smart only scores 2 points. You can't have that. And a chance to go up 2-0 on the defending champs. I mean, on a team that's won a lot of championships the last couple of years. You can go for the kill, going home. That would have been huge if they could have went up 2-0. But not having their other starters show up, that was disappointing. So that's something I think they'll, look back on like, if we could have, given them a little more. Like I know Al Horford after game one, he really was never the same. I know in game six, he started to hit some shots in the second half, and they kind of almost got the game close again, but then they had some turnovers, and then the Warriors pulled out ahead, and they never looked back. But I feel like once he had that big game in game one, he shot all his bullets and he was never the same. So, and Robert Williams not being healthy, I know he said his knee, all it needs is rest. So hopefully he's able to heal up because he's one of the best shot blockers, rim protectors, defenders in the league. So the Celtics, they're gonna be back. If they make a couple additions to their team, I would not be surprised if they're back making another deep run next year. All right, to close out the show, we're going to talk about are the Warriors a lot to repeat next year? As Draymond said, welcome to the Warriors Invitational. I don't think they're a lot to get back to the championship next year. Now, obviously, I'm not going to count them out. Obviously, they got to figure out if they can find a way to re-sign Wiggins. Jordan Poole's going to want his money after all the, he had a great season this year. Coming up from the G League last year to this season, it's just really impressive what he was able to do this year. He's gonna want his money. I expect Clay to be better next year after having 2 seasons back to back dealing with injuries. This offseason, knock on wood, that he'll be able to have a healthy offseason, won't get hurt or anything like that. And I think he'll be better next year and more sharp. And that's just, I think that's why this championship is so special to the Warriors. The last 2 seasons, they were dealing with Clay being hurt, and Curry was in and out of the lineup hurt. Draymond was hurt, and that's kind of why they struggled the last 2 seasons prior to this year and getting back to the championship. And once they got Clay back, they didn't miss a beat. So I think that's why this championship was so special, and I think that's why they were showing so much emotion, especially Curry, with everything that they had been through for the last couple of years. But as I look here in the West, in no particular order, you got the Clippers with Kawhi coming back. They're going to be loaded. They're going to be one of the deepest teams in the league. The Lakers with Darvin Ham, can he, get them back to a playoff team? What are they going to do with Westbrook? So I'm intrigued to see how they rebuild that team. They need to get that team a lot better around Bron. Can AD stay healthy for more than 40 games next year? So it's a lot that's going to go into whether the Lakers are going to be back to being the Lakers again next year. You got the Grizzlies. They've been going back and forth on social media. John Morant and Draymond, that's going to be really intriguing to see next year. This may be a new rivalry that's building in the Western Conference. And then you had Klay Thompson after the game. Why don't we check it out? What he said after the game. He was referring to Jaren Jackson after they beat the Warriors. I think it was at the end of March, and he tweeted "strength in numbers," and here is Clay reacting to that. It popped in his head randomly, and it was so funny. So let's check it out.
Strength in numbers is alive and well. I can't wait. There was this one player on the Grizzlies who tweeted strength in numbers after they beat us in the regular season, and it pissed me off so much. I can't wait to retweet that thing. Freaking bum. I had to watch that. I'm almost like, this freaking clown. Okay. Sorry. That memory just popped up. You're going to mock us? Like, you ain't ever been there before, bro. We've been there. We know what it takes. So to be here again, hold that.
We'll do a last couple for Clay. Mark Spears, back right.
Twitter fingers. Can you believe it?
Cannot. Mark in the back right.
Clay,
I got a memory like an elephant. I don't forget. And there was a lot of people kicking us when we were down.
So as you see, that really ticked Clay off. Jaren Jackson said that back in March, and it's like Clay bookmarked that in his head and was waiting for the right opportunity to bring it up. So I'm hoping we get the Grizzlies and Warriors on Christmas Day or maybe opening night. That would be epic because they've been going back and forth on social media. Ja Morant and Draymond the last couple of days, and the Grizzlies, if Ja Morant can stay healthy, they were right there. They were really pushing the Warriors until he got hurt, and then they just weren't gonna be able to keep up with the Warriors after he went down. The Suns, what are they gonna do with Ayton? That's gonna be intriguing. I think that's gonna determine if they're gonna be in the hunt next year, contending for a championship. Whether they decide to bring him back, I know him and Coach Monty Williams got into it, so that's gonna be something to look out for. The Nuggets, they're gonna get Jamal Murray back and Michael Porter Jr. hopefully, so they're gonna be a threat. The Mavericks, they added Christian Woods. That gives them exactly what they need: a big man who can stretch the floor and he can protect the rim. So I think that's going to be huge because they really were missing that when they were playing the Warriors, because the Warriors were getting straight line drives to the rim. And speaking of that, another thing that confused me about the Celtics was why they didn't attack more against the Warriors, especially in these last couple games, because the Warriors were starting Otto Porter and Draymond was really their only big on the floor. And I don't understand why the Celtics didn't attack more. I feel like they settled a little too much, especially when you don't have a shot blocker in the game. I think they didn't take advantage of their size. So that's just something that confused me about the Celtics. I forgot to mention that earlier. Trailblazers, can they rebuild that team around Dame and turn them back into a contender? The Pelicans, if Zion can come back, be healthy, and stay healthy next year, with what they got, adding Zion to that mix, they could be dangerous. Willie Green is doing something special in New Orleans, so look out for them. And then you got the East. Giannis is going to be back. They're going to get Chris Middleton back, so they're going to be a problem to deal with. The 76ers, maybe. I don't know. We have to see if they can ever put it together. Seems like they always choke in the playoffs. The Heat, we know they're going to be back. They're probably going to make some additions to their team. The Celtics, like I said earlier, they're probably going to add to this team. Once you lose, you find out, what you need to address, what you need to get better at. So I feel like they're going to do that this offseason. And the Nets, if they can, get things together in Brooklyn, they could be a threat to win the championship next year. So I don't think it's a lock for the Warriors. I think it's going to be a gauntlet to get through the West. It's going to be so loaded out in the West. So we'll have to see if they can re-sign Andrew Wiggins, who was very huge for them from the second round on. He was just huge. He had some big games, some big moments for them. And like I said, if they can re-sign him and Jordan Poole, both of them are probably going to want their money this offseason. So can the Warriors figure out a way to fit that under the cap and making sure they're not over the cap? So that'll be intriguing to watch. That does it for Keith's Hot Takes. Thank you all for supporting. Don't forget to like, subscribe. If you already aren't subscribed, then I'll be back next week with a brand new episode, and I'll see you guys then. Peace.